Coming up next on The Voice of Alabama Politics, Team Hubbard attacks Robert Bentley in a coordinated fashion. Also, the V-Team takes a look at no-bid contracts in construction. And Mike Hubbard tried to turn his latest hearing into a media circus. The judge said, "I'll be the ringmaster." Mike, well, you're just the graft master. All this and much, much more coming up next on The V.
The Voice of Alabama Politics, with your host, Bill Britt, and the V-Team with Claire Austin, Susan Britt, Jack Campbell, Baron Coleman, Charlana Spencer, and special reports with Jonathan Barbie. Now, the #1 political show in Alabama, The V.
Welcome to The Voice of Alabama Politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and as always, I'm joined by the V-Team. Welcome home.
Good morning. Good morning.
It has been a busy week at the State House, lots going on, but we have to take a minute to go back to a story that we've been covering over the last couple of weeks. Dr. Larry Stutz, newly minted senator, everybody knows the story about how he tried to pass a bill to repeal a bill that was named after a patient who died in his care. He went on the radio recently and said that his co-sponsors were aware of that bill and what was behind it. He kind of walked it back 2 steps and said, well, some of them knew. Susan, what are the co-sponsors telling you?
Of all the co-sponsors that we've talked to and Claire's talked to, they had no idea. Even the guy that's worked with him for 20 years at Helen Keller Hospital knew it had something to do with the patient, but nothing to do with Rose Church.
Tim Melson, Dr. Tim Melson, worked with him for 27 years, said he knew it had to do with one of his patients. He didn't know any of the details. Baron, how can this guy survive?
I don't think he can. I mean, I've talked to so many people who said, well, this guy's career's over 2 weeks in. You know, if he had any grace and dignity, he'd go ahead and resign and say, you know, I can't effectively serve these people. He's not going to get anything passed. His career is done. If you live in the Shoals, your senator will never get anything done ever again, or Franklin County, wherever he is.
I mean, Claire, you know these guys. These guys like that were co-sponsors. I mean, these are some of the pillars.
Yeah, I mean, Busman, Hightower, some of those, McClendon. But, you know, voters have a short-term memory. Let's put the facts on the table, okay? Is his career over? Looks like it should be. Will he get things past this legislative session? Might. Particularly things that he tries to do for University of North Alabama and some things like that. He had a bill on the floor one day earlier this week.
But these senators, from what I'm hearing,
they don't trust
him.
Right. Well,
they don't trust him with any of this.
I mean, I don't know how you can trust him and then he goes on the radio after they denied it and says, well, no, they did know about it. So he's calling senior senators liars.
Well, when you're in a hole, stop digging. This is, you know, he's new. This is part of the problem. You should sit back for a few weeks, get your feet wet, you know, get your sea legs, figure out where the men's room is, figure out not to throw your senior senators under the bus. I mean, he's made a terrible disaster. He keeps digging, trying to dig his way out of this hole, and if he'll stop, maybe he'll recover.
Yeah, that's, you know, he ought to take a page book out of the Clintons or somebody else. Hey, I made a mistake. I did the wrong thing. I apologize. I apologize to the senators, the people of the district, and the people that I came after, and let it go.
But the problem is, he went on the radio and said that the reason he withdrew his support for the bill was not because it was wrong or not because he made a mistake, but because of the media firestorm. There's no firestorm, Susan, if he didn't light the fuse, right?
Exactly. He lit the fuse. He needs to take responsibility for it. He's not done that. Now, I understand he's apologized to the caucus, but he's not apologized to the people that voted for him. He's not apologized to the women of Alabama who this would have affected.
That's a Judas apology.
Yeah.
You know, Judas was sorry that he got caught.
Exactly.
He wasn't sorry that he did it.
He has a bad political consultant. Whoever is his political consultant needs to get on him immediately.
Call Claire Austin.
It's hard to get you out of the ditch when you're that bad in a ditch.
I tell you, another bill that came up this week that I found particularly egregious.
Hey, don't be using my word now.
No, particularly odd and hard to handle. And I was listening to Barron. Y'all did a great job on this, and this is a bill. It's a construction management bill, risk bill, where on public works projects there would be a no bid process. You know, you just your favorite buddy, right? Right, Barron?
Yeah, and you guys did talk about doing a good job. You guys found a grand jury report from Florida.
Yeah.
Where in Florida they looked at this and said it increased the cost of large construction projects 20 to 30%. That there's no way you can guarantee you're paying the lowest price except for bidding it. I mean, that's what we do with tax dollars. We bid projects out.
I mean, they said that grand jury said this thing just reeked of corruption and cronyism.
Well, I will tell you something. They have hired a lot of big guns over the State House, and there's a lot going on with all that. And some of the, inside big lobbyists have all been hired on this bill to try to pass that.
Well, I mean, Mark Tuggle, Representative Mark Tuggle, he sponsors the bill in the House, and he's also the chairman of that committee. Doesn't he have a connection to the construction industry?
I believe his brother is high up in Brassville Gorey.
Yeah, I
Which
think
is one of the largest construction firms in the state.
Who would benefit from this?
I mean, even with
absolutely.
this no bid process, I mean, even the most honest of legislators would be tempted to give it to their friend. I mean, this just makes it difficult.
Go back 2 or 3 years. They tried to do this a few years ago.
Right.
Slade Blackwell carried the bill in the Senate, had such an outpouring of opposition that he withdrew the bill. He didn't even show up to his own committee hearing because so many people had called him and said, "What are you doing?"
Well, you sent me
because he's in the construction business as well.
Yeah.
You sent me an email where it was Wetumpka Republican committee passed a resolution saying, kill this deal.
Yeah.
I mean, really, I talked to some of these small and mid-sized construction guys, and they said, look, they're down here in our turf. If it's a $15 million to $25 million contract, they can get it on a no bid.
Yeah.
And that really is...
Well, I mean, with the whole state, and when the former governor was there, everything was no bid contract, and it was all Republicans. What is this Republican legislative body trying to have no bid contracts because they want to really give a lot of support to one industry or some big corporations? It shouldn't be that way.
Well, we always heard when the Democrats were in charge, their buddies would come down to the State House and they'd give them some money and hand them up.
No different.
This bunch loads up the Brink truck and takes it to their buddies.
Well, yeah, that's true. That's true.
They don't even make them come get it. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was agreeing with you. Absolutely.
But I'm telling you, we've got some great legislators down there. We really do.
Oh, absolutely.
We do.
I don't want to throw them all in the same,
No, but
trough.
we're getting some bad bills down there, and I heard that this thing is losing traction here.
They just need to be slapped on the wrist and said, knock it off. When you think of corruption, you think of no bid.
Right.
Yeah.
When you say someone got a no bid contract, I mean, everyone immediately goes, well, that must have been corrupt. They're going to enshrine this into law.
Well, this is a greed factor.
Yeah.
An excessive greed factor is what it is.
Well, I think we can do better, and I think we will do better, but it's important to shine the light on it like y'all do on your show, like we do here, like we all do in the jobs we do. We're going to have to leave it right there. You're watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be back in a few minutes with some more news and analysis.
The V is sponsored by Spot On Strategies Group.
Welcome to Alabama's newest entertainment destination, Wind Creek, Wetumpka. The perfect escape for date night, a getaway with your friends, or a relaxing poolside cocktail. Whether it's a day trip to enjoy the best steak in Alabama or a romantic weekend, The finest Southern hospitality is just a short drive away. Wind Creek, Wetumpka. Find your winning moment.
Welcome back to the voice of Alabama politics. We're joined now by Jack Campbell.
Good morning. Thanks.
Good morning. Glad to
How y'all
see
doing?
you.
We are well. Something that Governor Bentley realizes that a lot of the people in our state are not, and that is well. One of the first times I ever interviewed Governor Bentley when he first took office, he showed me a yellow notebook that he had, and on the top was health. And he was quite concerned about the health of our people. He has done a lot to try to move Medicaid forward. He's tried to move health care forward. He really wants to take a stand and do something in the next few years. He's put together this task force of 38 people, some very smart people. This looks like it could be a good idea, doesn't it, Barron?
Well, it did. One of the things you've got to understand about the governor that most people probably don't know about him, he was born and raised dirt poor.
Yeah.
They didn't have indoor plumbing. They didn't have electricity. Moved into town when he was 7 or 8 years old. They actually had to drag their cow behind the moving truck.
I don't think they drug it.
Well, you know what I mean, but you know, driving 1 mile an hour while the
He
cow
walked behind them.
Right, and so he has an understanding of what it means to be poor. Yeah. He really does, and I don't think when he's looking at Medicaid, he's not looking at it in such a sterile numbers only environment. He really is looking at the health of human beings with dignity who live in the state of Alabama. Putting this task force together, he's taken some criticism on it, but I don't think it's a bad idea. Medicaid is growing out of control. Yeah. It's taking up now close to a third of our general fund budget. Yeah. It's only going to take up more if we don't do something about it. Assembling a group of experts, politicians, leaders, hospital folks, and coming together and say, is there a better way? How can you criticize a man for that?
Well, you know, one of the things that irritated me, Claire, and I took exception to it, is some people characterize this as the people who wanted to expand Obamacare and said there were a bunch of Democrats on it. There weren't a bunch of Democrats. It's just doctors and smart people
and industry people, association groups, right?
But they don't have anything to do with expanding Obamacare.
Well, I mean, he's trying to get a hold on the Medicare and the health care issues in this state because it has been a boiling pot for so long, and the way the formula is done, and the way that we get money from the federal government here in Alabama.
Yeah. And I applaud him for doing that.
And health problems become economic problems for the state.
That's
too.
exactly
really
correct.
We love our fried food, and we love our
I'm not on the health task force.
and people love to smoke, so you got to keep smoking in order to
First
fund
time
Medicaid.
I met Bentley sitting in his office at the State House, he looked at me and said, "Jack, you got rosacea. Let me write you a script." I didn't even have to pay for a visit.
You know, he still keeps his medical license.
Yeah.
He does a great job. One of the things, and we're getting ready to do a series on mental health and what the cuts in the budget have meant to mental health. I mean, this thing is really serious. I mean, if they cut mental health the way they say they're going to cut it, you're going to put, hundreds and maybe thousands of mental health patients on the street. I mean, we don't have the big institutions to put them in. I mean, this can be a crisis for everybody.
It can be. They consolidated some of the institutions up and around central Alabama with some other ones, about 2 or 3 years ago. So there's been some consolidation in the mental health arena in the past.
I think our legislature has really taken a very callous attitude toward the mentally ill and not properly funding programs that benefit people that have nowhere to go or through no fault of their own or just mentally challenged.
Yeah.
Yeah, but y'all say this, and I work up there in that environment every day, but they put these options on the board to tax this, and to do this, and to do that. And I'll have to say, Chairman Arthur Orr, the chairman of the committee, he keeps saying, y'all, we're going to have some drastic cuts we've got to make, 11% across the board. We're trying to downsize this and downsize this. If y'all don't, we're going to be cutting services from people. So they've got to see the dire straits. Now, I agree with you, these mental health people need to be taken care of, but these legislators have got, particularly these ones on these general fund committees, they have got to take a close look at what they're doing.
Well, they need to take a close look at what Bentley's proposing to raise revenue to fund things like that.
I agree.
Well, I remember when I lived in New York City for a while, and they let the folks out of the mental hospitals. And I mean, overnight you were in a Twilight Zone episode. And then after a while, you just felt so desperately concerned for these people. I mean, these people are most certainly are mentally ill through no fault of their own.
Well, so didn't the legislator turn around and do something for them in New York?
It took a while.
Okay.
It took a while.
It does take a while, and it's not an easy fix, because you look at someone who's mentally ill and they've got 2 arms, 2 legs, you know, they're not missing limbs. There's nothing you can immediately see.
Right.
And it's a kind of a silent illness that most of society doesn't recognize as an illness. When you cut funding to mentally ill people, those people end up on Medicaid rolls, they end up on welfare, they end up in prisons. You know, it's not a good scenario long term. It might make short-term sense, but it doesn't make long-term sense.
Well, and you know, we almost every one of our legislators claims to be a good Christian, but sometimes we forget the social gospel, don't we, Jack?
We do.
Well, I think something else we had said we were going to talk about was the alcohol issue and funding.
Well, we can, talking about social issues.
Speaking of social issues.
You can either be socially drinking or morally bankrupt.
Well, what I'm saying is, you know, I think this correlates to mental health and children and money and cutting, because this past week in the Alabama legislature, speaking of in the General Fund Committee, particularly in the Senate, they voted down Senator Arthur Orr's idea of privatization of the ABC liquor stores, okay? And that was a 4-8 vote. Now, for the record, I don't have a dog in this fight, but like he said, okay, you're eliminating these jobs, these benefits, these taxes, which would have saved a tremendous amount of payroll for the state of Alabama, which, you know, who knows, could have funded mental health and children. But they're not willing to look at doing that, and it's because you've got these strong lobbyists on each side.
Well, Jack, I mean, you talked to Mac Gibson. You had him on
our radio show, and Mac talked about how much revenue the state would lose, and by going to privatization. And we already have privatization, by the way, but in fact, there are more private stores than there are public state stores. But we would lose, what, a couple $100 million, Barron? Isn't that what he said?
Yeah, I think, and Speaker Hubbard said last week at a Republican club meeting I was at that it was up to $350 million they might lose from the general fund by privatizing the ABC stores.
In the long run, you can make money.
You might be able to make it back up 20 years from now.
But it's not an immediate fix.
And we're in a crisis now.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I kind of tend to like the ABC stores. It keeps the prices low, relatively. I mean, Alabama has the 4th highest tax on spirits in the country. I mean,
That's correct.
We like to tax our spirits.
You don't want to eliminate one of the only agencies in the state that's actually making
working.
money, that's returning a profit.
Yeah, we're going to leave it right there with Jack. ABC means profit for Alabama. All right, you're watching The V. We'll be right back in a few minutes. Watch our commercials. It pays the bills.
You know, if they could just cut us out from drinking, the state would go bankrupt.
Bill, I was gonna toast you on that.
The V is sponsored by Wind Creek, Wetumpka. Find your winning moment.
Welcome to Alabama's newest entertainment destination, Wind Creek, Wetumpka. The perfect escape for date night, a getaway with your friends, or a relaxing poolside cocktail. Whether it's a day trip to enjoy the best steak in Alabama or a romantic weekend, the finest Southern hospitality is just a short drive away. Wind Creek, Wetumpka. Find your winning moment.
Welcome back to The V, the voice of Alabama politics. I firmly believe, and these things are tough to document, but I firmly believe that there is a coordinated attack on Governor Robert Bentley, and it all has to do with the Mike Hubbard trial coming up in October. Jack, you and I both know in politics, a coincidence is only a plan that you haven't discovered,
That's
right?
exactly right.
What do you think
radio
about
talk
that?
show host all over the state turned on Bentley. People are getting more airtime to beat him up. I mean, it's a pretty coordinated effort if I've ever seen it. And they need to be reminded that man won by like 40% of the vote. I mean, he won 70-30.
Yeah.
And he's still very popular.
And he's got some money too. He's still got some money.
The other thing is you have to, as you know, just for the record, you know, the current speaker that's under the 23 counts of indictment has hired a professional PR firm to try to build his image up, and it appears to tear Governor Bentley's down. And he's got a lawyer that tries to, you know, basically take this case to the media as opposed to the courtroom.
Yeah.
So that correlates exactly with what y'all are saying.
I think you need to back up a little bit and say, why would they have an interest in tearing Bentley down in October? Obviously, we know he's going to testify in the trial. Ordinarily, a witness comes in to a jury trial. The jury has no idea who the witness is. The prosecution paints part of a picture. The defense paints part of a picture. And the jury's left to decide who's telling the truth. With the governor as strong and as powerful, honest, and trustworthy as Robert Bentley, if he's sitting in the dock testifying against you, you're in big trouble. Because they don't have to paint a picture. The people already know the picture. They like the picture. They bought the picture twice, and in big numbers. And so there has to be a way for Mike Hubbard's team to bring him down, to take that 70, 80% trustworthy rating down. The way they've chosen to do it is through this attack. Oh, he's a liar. He changed on taxes, this, that, and the other. They're all doing the same thing, too. Mike Hubbard, like I said, at this Montgomery Republican Club meeting, basically said, we're going to raise your gas taxes. Your gasoline taxes are going up under a Republican legislature. He all but said it. Yeah. Now, is he a liar? Are they all going to turn on him?
No.
Because he didn't campaign on tax raises.
They're afraid of him. But they should be afraid of Bentley, like Jack said. What really astounds me, I mean, they've even gone so far as to start calling him a Democrat and making up, I mean, just using those fundamental hot-button words that make people cringe in Alabama.
And he's such a good sport. I mean, Holtzclaw puts up a billboard saying, you know, his tax plan will never pass over my dead body. And then he comes up there and makes a speech and makes a joke about it. He's a good sport.
Yeah.
He's a likable guy. Be careful who you attack in politics.
The thing that bothers me, and we all know how these rumors go, I mean, they've come after all of us at one time or another.
And they've really done, in the last weeks, they've done some really low-down rumor things to the governor that just really are not believable.
And it's going to be more and more and more of this, don't you think, Claire?
I agree, and I just hope that the average Alabaman, you know, can see through this.
Well, you know, I know who can see through it. It's people in the Tea Party. Those people, the people that identify themselves as Tea Party, they get it. They really do.
Well, they have a distrust of establishment Republicans.
Right.
I mean, that's what makes them a Tea Party unit. And those who have a distrust of establishment Republicans have it for a reason.
Right.
And typically it's because we don't trust them to be honest with us, to be above board, to be disinterested in their jobs.
Well, and that's what, you know, I bring them out, single them out, not that the other folks, the Democrats and other Republicans don't see that. But it's like Barron said, they have a genuine distrust. So they're watching this, and they'll see this. They'll get it.
And it's an underground character assassination attempt on Bentley.
Yes.
And we've heard it, and you've heard it, and it's wrong, and the people are going to see through it, and the jury's going to see through
it. I had people shopping me stories over the last couple of months, and I was like, you got to be kidding me.
I mean,
you know.
who are you going to believe in that trial? A guy who was raised in Alabama under very poor conditions, who worked his way up, joined the Air Force, became a doctor, became a state representative, and then was elected governor. No state reps are ever elected governor. This guy did it. Are you going to believe a carpetbagger from Georgia who came off over here and made money off Auburn University and took them for everything they had, and now he's fighting for his political life because basically he's made some very bad mistakes at taxpayer expense?
And I think it's like Kara said, they've hired the best people they can find to coordinate this attack against him. You know, Mike Hubbard got slapped around a little bit the other week when they had this hearing, and it was called very quickly by Judge Walker down in Lee County. And he said, look, I was going to wait till the April 15th to have these hearings on these motions, but when you subpoena the governor of Alabama, I'm getting that off my docket right now. They tried to turn that thing into a media circus, didn't they?
Well, they did, and it failed. And the judge, I mean, contrary to all media reports, not all media is legal savvy. I mean, it's not their fault. It's just they don't understand what's going on as they're watching it. The judge did not say we're going to have an evidentiary hearing.
No, never said it.
He said if we have a hearing, we're going to limit it to 2 or 3 people who are able to testify. 2 of them, their transcripts are already in the record. I don't know what they could possibly testify about. Tone, tenor.
Right.
I mean, the
Well,
transcripts
I was
are
thinking
there.
he threatened me.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the words are there. They're plain as day. Yeah, the judge did a good job here. He just cut it off at the knees.
Yeah, and I think that was part of it, that people just didn't understand the legalese here. But they really, he told them, he said, look, I'm not letting you put Luther Strange on the stand or probably anybody in the office. He said, I'm going to let you talk to Leland Whaley, who's a radio host, Dale Jackson, who's whatever he is, and Mike Bald, who might as well be a radio host. He's a guitar player.
Yeah, he's pretty good, too.
I
give Mike credit.
I like his hat.
He's a great
Yeah, he wears a big hat.
but he's pretty good.
He wears a giant hat.
Well, I mean, they're just trying to discredit the governor and Luther Strange. Yeah. That is their ploy. That is their tactic. And my hat's off to the judge standing up and doing the right thing.
And the lawyer, Mark White, and of course Hubbard saying we want to go ahead and get this thing over with, and then they file all these stall motions and crazy stuff. I don't know.
Barron, we got about 1 minute, but I think April 15th, when they have all these motion hearings, even if there's not an evidentiary hearing, we're going to learn a lot of those things.
I think we'll learn a lot at that. I know you've been on record saying if it doesn't go well for Mike Hubbard, you think he could potentially take a plea deal. I think he would probably wait until after the session if he had the opportunity.
Sure.
But I'm not inclined to disagree with you. I think, honestly, it's expensive to litigate a defense trial.
Well, and Claire...
Not when you got lobbyists funding your legal defense.
Well, that's true, but how long do they want to do it? Well, listen, it's like Claire said, y'all said, we've all said this, there's some bigger fish that could get fried if Mike doesn't take a deal.
Sure.
And I think that's a big concern out there. There's a lot of tough, wealthy people that don't want to get dragged into court.
And there's some sardines that sang, too.
It's going to be an interesting next, I'd say 6 or 7 days.
Yeah, it is. All right, well, we're going to have to leave it right there. You've been watching the voice of Alabama politics. You can catch fresh stories every day at alreporter.com, and you can catch us every week throughout the state on your ABC affiliate. Thank you for watching.